All right, so today I'm gonna be breaking down some trades that I took this week. Um, so I only took two trades this week just because the price action in the beginning of the week we had FOMC, as you can see here. So I didn't trade Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. But then on Thursday, I was able to find a nice setup, and then on Friday I was also able to find a nice setup. So let's dive right into the first setup. Okay, so on the first setup here, you can see we're clearly in a downtrend. With my strategy, I focus on really high quality draw and liquidities. This was one of them, obviously, first of all. But then once we took that, I was like, okay, we have these down here. We have these unfilled 4 hour gaps as well with this little low inside that 4 hour gap, which isn't my favorite draw, but I figured at least we would target this gap right here. And then as well as I figured kind of in this scenario, I thought the new week opening gap would be a target. But we also had the daily FEG, which obviously we had tapped into previously, like before that move happened. But yeah, and then so essentially what happened was, we get this big rip down, and then we ended up creating a 1 hour fair value gap, or we were about to. So I was like, okay, I could, try to take a long off this inversion here, these 2 5 minute inversions, but I was like, nah. I'm just gonna wait because worst case scenario, there's these relative equal highs. I can get a continuation into those. So basically, I just waited for 10 a.m. to open, which is like the new 1 hour candle, obviously. Open high into this 1 hour imbalance, SIBI. Then I jumped down to the 5 minute, and then basically what I was watching is this 5 minutes to get inversed here. Because like I said, I figured if we're going to be bearish, we're going to keep going lower into those two draws down there, so at least take that low out. But this was to pass an eval, so I was only targeting a 1-to-1 since I basically just risked the full amount to get it. And I did enter a little early on this. It wasn't quite like where that that BISI got inversed. It was more so up here, and I'm going to show you why. So I saw 10 a.m. open, right? This is 10 a.m. open here. We open high, sink down, break a structure on the 1 minute, right? Let me just remove this. And then what I was watching is, okay, we pulled back up, we rebalanced OTE, straight immediate, drop down, and that's when I entered, is when we got this drop here and closure below these bodies. Stop at that high, obviously, because that's a protected high now. So I usually put at the bodies there. And then I targeted a 1-to-1, which was right here. Maybe it was a little bit more. I think I did end up targeting that second 5 minute BISI there. Yeah, so this was my target right here. Maybe it was a little bit further since it had to be a 1-to-1. This was a 1-to-1 trade. But like I said, I didn't wait for the full closure because, as we started to come down here, we were already closing that BISI. It hadn't closed obviously on the 5 minute, but I knew we were wanting to be bearish since we reacted out of that 1 hour so bearishly, and then we obviously had the draws below. So yeah, once we started to get some closure down here, and then I kind of knew, like, once this candle started to close and then this one, once we get that rebalance and lower, I was like, okay, I think we're going to be pretty bearish. And then essentially what I just targeted, like I said, was that secondary 5 minute, or this, and then also this 1 minute FFEG. But yeah, that's pretty simple breakdown there. And this wasn't the best trade because I would have targeted probably the full lows here, and then I probably would have got stopped at break even because I would have gone break even once we hit that secondary 5 minute or discount this current range here. Because I was bearish, but at the same time I was like, we also could come rebalance these two FEGs and then go higher. So like essentially once we were able to hit like discount and then also OTE 62, that was kind of where I was like, okay, that's where I took profit at, because it was on eval, like I said, and I only needed to get that 1,500 profit, so I hit that. But if I was in like a live account, I probably would have tried to hold it down here and then gone break even once we hit that OTE level, and then probably got stopped out of B, or maybe it would have, it depended where I entered at completely, but because obviously I missed mine by a tick. But regardless, pretty good trade. Not my best trade, but I saw the setup and I was willing to take it. So that's that. Next trade was Friday, 31st, Halloween. Let me just get rid of all these drawings here. Let's go to the hourly. And then I'm going to break down what I kind of saw here on Friday. So I'm going to show you guys a trade that I already took a trade before this, so I didn't take another one, but this would have been a really, really good trade here. Tap into the 15-minute. We're obviously bearish. Our draw is probably going to be lower here just because on the hourly we're super bearish. And then like on Thursday we tapped, we swept, tapped that, and then clear draw is going to be the previous day's lows. So just a little, observe trade here. Would have been a really nice 1-to-1. You just take the inversion of that 15-minute, target those internal lows, stop up somewhere here in the highs like that. 1.25R, beautiful trade. But then, yeah, and that's the reason I'd be bearish, is because obviously like on the 1 hour there were some gaps there, but on the 4 hour this is all just wicks. And then on the daily I could just tell, I didn't think we were really going to want to go back up since we took that high and we kind of dipped down. I figured, since we gapped up so much, we want to come down lower. And that's what, like I said in the beginning, the NWAL was my target for the whole week, that huge gap. And this is actually a red candle. I don't know why it's the blue color, because that's my up candle color. But anyways, coming into this day, come on. That's interesting. Okay. 1 second. I'm just gonna reload this. Okay, there we go. So this day Friday I actually ended up taking a trade on ES just because it was a little more clear to me, and there was actually an entry versus on NQ there was no entry. So what I saw was, I used these time cycle indicators just to find the draws and liquidity, but obviously this is Asia low here, and then on the hourly, let's see. Yeah, so that's a clear hourly low, and obviously it barely rebalanced at BISI, sorry. So I figured, we kind of want to come back down, and like I said, I was bearish anyways on the day due to the fact that the daily was bearish, the daily chart. So basically what I was waiting for is market open, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and do this. Yeah, so I was looking for Asia lows, but as you can see here, there was no 1 minute or 5 minute SIBIs to really get into before going lower. Obviously there was this one, but it didn't come up and get it. So I ended up checking ES, and I was like, okay, there's a decent setup here. It was in this first presented, and now again, this wasn't the very best setup I could have taken, but I knew that we were pretty bearish, and we started dropping super hard at open. So we ended up, wanting to look and make this 5 minute here, but this 1 minute first presented was in this leg right here. And so when I saw this 5 minute candle start to dump down like that, I was like, okay, it could come up back up there and tap that, but the draw is super clear. NQ hadn't taken it out yet, so there's no SMT there. And so, I see it come up, tap into, it taps it, doesn't really respect it, but then once we get this break back below, I was like, okay, that looks pretty decent. So I ended up taking this right here, like that. And yeah, pretty decent setup. I wouldn't say this is an A+ setup, because obviously an A+ setup would just be like 1 or 2 candles tapping in, actually respecting that fair value gap, and then breaking below. But nonetheless, I like this setup a lot just because it's a very discretionary trade. You'd have to have a lot of experience to be able to notice something like this. I have 3 years of trading experience, so not saying I'm the best, but discretion does play a big thing in trading. So that was my trade for Friday. Very nice 1-to-1 RR. And yeah, those were my kind of trades for Friday. And then that same 15-minute trade that I showed you guys beforehand on NQ actually ended up playing out on ES even better. So you got this rebalance here into this 15-minute, and I'm assuming that's probably about OT. I mean, not OT, but equilibrium. Yeah. So we tap equilibrium, and then you get that let's see here. Once it loads, yeah, there you go. And then it tapped that, broke lower again. And then on this third candle, it actually broke below. So your entry could have been there, targeting. I probably would have entered on this candle, to be straight up with you, just because it closed below the midpoint of that first presented. So that would have been your easy draw there. And then you could have just taken that trade there, stop at those highs up there for a nice 2RR. That would have been a nice trade. And then obviously a lot of people would probably get scared when you hit that low right there. And unless there was SMT, which there might have been, no, there wasn't. No, there was with YM, but not with NQ. You know, I would have been willing to hold this trade just because you're pretty bearish on the day, and you know you're just rebalancing back and forth. So then obviously this rebalance is higher while you're in that trade, and then you're good, right? So then it ends up hitting TP. So that would have been a really nice trade as well, off that 15-minute inversion type deal there. But yeah, that was the trade recap for the week. I got 2 trades this week, 2 winners. This just shows you guys, you do not have to trade every single day. And in fact, you shouldn't trade every day unless the price action is absolutely 100% beautiful. You should not trade every day. Like, bro, this week was so shitty in the beginning. It was so bad. It was so choppy, back and forth. Like, look at that, dude. That's Wednesday. That's awful because it was FOMC. Monday, we just started slowly grinding up. Nothing really of interest to me there either. And then, dude, Thursday and Friday were beautiful, beautiful price action days, at least in the beginning of Thursday, I should say, because you got that, you know, sweep up and then it came back down. But then Friday, absolutely, you know, just classic AMD setup, accumulation, manipulation, distribution, and obviously we ended up going lower. And then I'm assuming on Monday we'll continue to go lower into that in the end log of last week down here. Because as you guys know, obviously the price moves, you know, boom, market maker buy model, boom, we get that breaker structure, market maker sell model currently now, and I'm assuming our point of interest is going to be, again, the new week opening gap. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. You got some value, you know, from this trade breakdown / you know, kind of observing the charts and breakdown of the week. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.